No football's happening today. None. None whatsoever. Don't need to worry about it. Let's just focus on Arsenal. It's the only thing that matters. This is today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. Very much appreciate you being here and listening on a weekend especially on a Sunday of all days as well. But thank you to those joining us live at the chat box. Good morning to Martin and Roy, Mohammed, Chris, Knowledge, Rancid, Carlton. We've got Book and Stephen and Paul, Jean and Brian and Matt, Black Shine and Claire, Shari, Natty, Tom, Stevie, Paul. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much to all of you for tuning in. Really appreciate your time, and plenty others, of course, listening, I'm sure, on catch up as well. Thank you to you all for listening as well. It is greatly appreciated. So I don't think we should waste any time, really, because there's a little matter that we need to talk about, which we can skip over quite quickly, which is, of course, the Premier League action today. Chelsea, well, we'll talk about yesterday's results as well because they are important for the top 5 race. Chelsea 1, Everton 0 in their game. Brighton 3, West Ham United 2. 2 very late goals to see West Ham rather frustrated. Graham Potter's press conference going somewhat viral yesterday with his anger. Newcastle winning 3-0 against Ipswich. Southampton losing at home to Fulham. Fulham with another late goal there. Important fixture for them. Wolves winning 3-0 against Leicester. And there was a point yesterday. There was a stage yesterday where Spurs and United were 16th and 17th. When West Ham were leading in their game, there was a brief moment where we saw one of the greatest league table standings we've ever seen, which was those two sitting in 16th and 17th, which is just brilliant. Have you seen that? A good friend of the show, Nepenthes, the meme of Nepenthes doing his F1, and it's like 16th. That's certainly how it kind of felt when looking at the table, which was great. So yeah, that was kind of wonderful in itself. Spurs currently still sitting in 16th and will probably stay there based upon the results that we expect to go down in today's games. 2:00. Bournemouth against Man United. Liverpool take on Spurs, where they can, of course, clinch the title at 4:30 this afternoon. And Nottingham Forest face Brentford at 7:30 as well. So big games in the race for top 5. Newcastle sitting 5 points behind Arsenal with their win over Ipswich. Manchester City 6 points behind Arsenal in 4th. Chelsea 7 points behind Arsenal with their win on 60 points. Nottingham Forest can close the gap to Arsenal to just 4 points if they win against Brentford. They absolutely do need to win for their hopes of claiming Champions League qualification this season. Down the bottom of the table, Man United can rise to the mighty 13th, to be fair to them. 13th place if they indeed do manage to beat Wolves. Big congratulations to Crystal Palace on knocking out Aston Villa in the FA Cup semi-final. They will face the winner of today's game between City and Nottingham Forest, of course, as well. Forest playing their league game next Thursday, that Brentford match. So they are indeed in action today against City in the FA Cup semi-final. But disappointing season it could end up being for Aston Villa, because, of course, they've fallen out of the Champions League. They've fallen out of the other cup competitions. They've now fallen out of the FA Cup at the semi-final stage. They could end up finishing 7th in the table. It is not looking pretty for Forest, for Villa, despite looking at one point to be in a really positive place. Now, a turn of results has changed things quite drastically for them. And if they do end up finishing 7th and get that UEFA Conference League qualification spot, which, of course, could still, I think, there could be a chance, of course, that it does become a Europa League spot. I think if Man City win the FA Cup, not 100% sure across that case, but there is a chance of that happening. But if not, it could be, will most likely be a UEFA Conference League spot, or maybe in some scenarios, not even a spot at all. We will have to wait and see. But it could be a very bad season for Villa and Unai Emery coming the end of May. Moving forwards into Arsenal-specific news, and Max Dowman scored his second hat-trick in his last 3 games. In fact, he scored 4 goals for Arsenal in their under-18s 4-0 win over Reading. If you haven't particularly seen the first goal, I would recommend going and check it out. Brilliant driving run and finish, as we've come to expect from the 15-year-olds, who, of course, can't sadly be used in Arsenal's senior matches this season, but we could get the opportunity to see him in pre-season, maybe making his senior debut next season. Of course, he remains very highly thought of and joins the senior level of training very, very regularly as well. Obviously, he's let's just wait and see. It's so hard not to, of course, get excited and build hype around a young player that's doing so many exciting things. But I think Arsenal need to try and keep their feet on the ground, and certainly Max does as well. But very, very impressive performance yesterday. Records have been broken in the ticket applications for the game against PSG. I know this is the third day in a row we're talking about ticketing, of course, but we did get access to some data yesterday, which tells us, of course, the application success rates of memberships from Arsenal for the game against PSG. Just to give you a little bit of context, 26% of silver members managed to get access to tickets for the Real Madrid game. 7% of red member applications were successful in getting a ticket for that Real Madrid fixture. For the PSG game, it has reached new records of high application rates. 13% of silver membership applicants were successful in the ballot, and only 3% of red members who applied were successful in the ballot for the PSG semi-final Champions League clash at the Emirates. This doesn't mean that, less tickets are being given. This is about the percentage of applicants that turn out to be successful. There are allocations, of course, for those different memberships and for those different ballots, but so many people have applied with those memberships. It's worth pointing out, of course, that silver memberships have been on pause, as far as I'm aware, for quite a while. It's not been possible to get new silver memberships for quite a while because there's already a significant number of them, and there was even more being used to apply for those tickets for the game against PSG. It's set to be a brilliant atmosphere. Congratulations to those, of course, that have managed to get tickets. If you have, of course, plenty of season tickets holders will also be there. If you were not successful in the ballot, of course, you do qualify for the ticket exchange. Keep your eyes peeled to that ticket exchange. I can tell you that only 700 people on the ticket exchange did get tickets for the Real Madrid game, so it's expected that even fewer will end up getting tickets for the game against PSG, I imagine. So make sure you check across all of those avenues if you indeed have access to them. And lastly, just to kind of get a little bit of an update on Arsenal's loanees and what's going on with them, because Andrea Berta, who of course has taken over the position of sporting director from Unai Emery, from Edu Gaspar, is going to have to make sense of the situation with a number of players. So just to give kind of a run through, Carhine currently on loan at Real Valladolid this season. There is an expectation that he next season could be sold. Arsenal may look to cash in on Carhine after a season. He's, of course, under contract. There isn't a feeling that he will become Arsenal's number 2 next season, and so a sale looks like the most likely avenue. Nuno Tavares is on loan at Lazio this season. They do have an obligation to buy clause in that deal, despite not playing more recently. There is a feeling, of course, that he will go to Lazio. They may then choose to sell him on in the summer themselves, but they have that clause that they can, of course, and will be exercising in the summer. Fabio Vieira's loan is just a dry loan to Porto. However, there's been no indication that he will have a future at Arsenal beyond this season. There is a growing expectation that he will likely be sold in the summer. Sambi Lokonga, who is, of course, on loan with Sevilla, has faced a number of injury issues. And again, despite there being some signs that he might have stayed in Sevilla at the beginning of his loan, certainly that's how he spoke about wanting to stay with Sevilla over the course of the next few years. That has diminished over the last couple of months, and it could be that he indeed does return to Arsenal as they then look to get another sale of Lokonga or maybe another loan for him next season. But it's a tricky situation for the young Belgian. And then Reiss Nelson, of course, who's on a dry loan with Fulham. He too is most likely expected to leave the club in the summer. He has only, I believe, a year left on his current deal with Arsenal. I will double check that actually, because I feel like he signed a new contract not so long ago. But this dry loan with Fulham does not include any kind of purchase option. Note to the lie, he has 2 years left on his contract. So he still will be on the books at the club come the summer, and they will have to make a decision on his future. Marquinhos is, of course, on loan currently until January in Brazil, so there will be no decision taken on his future as things stand. But that's kind of a roundup, if you like, of all of the kind of senior loan situations of the Arsenal squads. In terms of other players, youngsters that are currently on loan, we've got we haven't really got anybody, to be honest, competing on loan from the youth side. Maldini Kukuri is at Bromley. He's only 19 years of age, so he'll probably come back. In fact, I don't know if he's come back already from that loan with Bromley, but we saw Jack Henry Price's return. We saw Charles Sago Jr. also return from his loan as well. But no, it will be in the summer that Maldini Kukuri returns from that loan with Bromley. Curious to see how many games he's played so far this campaign. Currently, it doesn't look like many, despite being on loan there so far this season. Of course, Cole Jenkinson, you'll remember, is currently playing for Bromley. He did play 18 minutes in on the 8th in. So what was that? That was, goodness me, that was in March, the 8th of March. He played 27 minutes in a 1-1 draw at the start of April. He's been on the bench a few times, but has not really played. Maldini Kukuri, sadly, not really been involved in the Bromley squad, which is a shame, obviously, as well. Tavares did not cost much at all, Nathan. He was only like £6-7 million in the end. And Beluthu says, don't forget we signed a Chelsea youth left back. We talked about this yesterday. Marcel Washington is set to sign for the club on a permanent deal in this summer window, which is obviously really good. I remember watching the Arsenal youth team play Derby last month, and he was definitely one of the standout players. Left back, can play further forward as well. Really exciting player. But a lot of loanees whose futures are kind of, just simmering out with Arsenal, sadly. But that is what happens. Right, let's go to part 2 of today's show and tackle some of your questions over the next 15 minutes or so, right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show. I'll be tackling some of your questions in the chat box. If you've indeed got any that you'd like to throw in, if you use a capital Q, it helps them to stand out. So let's wait and see what happens. Stephen says, why is there zero media coverage anywhere regarding the awful decision to disallow the Palace goal for a foul? The referee Gardner and backed up by the VAR just so poor, yet they get away with it. I'll be honest, I didn't watch the game. I only saw the goals. Brilliant, fantastic strike from Eze, of course, in this game. But I've not seen the goal that was ruled out. Doing a quick Twitter search just to see if indeed we can get a little clip. I don't see a difference. Okay, so it doesn't see. Oh, I see where it was. The ball was rolled out in this game. Oh no, I'm looking. This is from 2022. What am I doing? Latest is what I want. Can't see a video of it, unfortunately. Doesn't seem to be getting any coverage anyway. I guess because if they've won the game, no one really cares. But Stephen, I've not seen it, so I can't comment. But a lot of you in the chat box are saying that it was a terrible decision, but it doesn't really matter, I guess, in the end. But if it had have just been one goal, that is a very, very dangerous scenario if indeed it is as bad as what you guys seem to be saying in the chat box. Salahuddin says, what are your thoughts on Ian Wright's response to Eni Aluko? Of course, if you've not been following this story, Eni Aluko effectively alluded to the fact that she felt that Ian Wright was blocking the pathway for kind of other female broadcasters from getting into the space. She said, I've worked with Ian a long time, and, I think he's a brilliant broadcaster, but I think he's aware of just how much he's doing in the women's game. I think he should be aware of that. It was an awful comment. Eni Aluko is that I talk at length about the women's game. In fact, we were dedicating the second part of this show towards the end of it to, of course, today's game between Lyon and Arsenal in the Champions League semi-final second leg, where Rene Slegers will be hoping, of course, to turn around that 2-1 deficit from the Emirates a week ago. And there's a chance that they could, of course. But we've talked at length about the women's game on the channel. It's a regular feature. We've defended the women's game for some pretty unsavoury commenters in chat boxes, and they are long gone, thankfully so. But what Eni Aluko is a poor pundit. Just on merit, she's just not a very good pundit. And it's a shame because there are a lot of very good female pundits in the game, and the female game has been boosted by Ian Wright's very passionate support and highlight of the game in the broader context, and helped it massively. And he supported a lot of young female broadcasters, young female players. And to see those comments that came from Eni Aluko was incredibly disappointing. But Ian Wright did speak on Instagram, and he says, "I've got to say I'm very disappointed by what Eni has said. She knows She knows how I've helped her, supported her publicly. And I know the previous conversation she's had with me and my management. So for me, I've seen your apology on social media, but I can't accept it. But I also want to move on from it." Why should he have to? Just because somebody apologizes doesn't mean that you have to accept the apology. And I don't blame Ian Wright for not accepting the apology at all. Because it was a really ill thought out comment that I say ill thought out. She knew what she was saying. It is a bit of, I agree with Soup here. It does feel very much like a stab in the back to Ian Wright. And I'm curious if this does affect Eni Aluko's presence on any platforms, because I'm sure that there are plenty of young female broadcasters, pundits, former players, retired players and coaches that would love that opportunity, that probably are more deserving and wouldn't be speaking so disparagingly about Ian Wright as well, because that's just so out of order, like so incredibly out of order. Josh says, Tom, just going by your gut feeling, which striker do you think will get in the upcoming window? Gut feeling, I'd be leaning towards Sesko, but honestly, it's really open right now. It's very, very open. Nathan says, I think with another striker on board, Havertz will be freed up for extra minutes in attacking midfield, which was considered his best position when we signed him. I don't think it was considered his best position at all. I think his best position is as a second striker. That, I think, is Kai's best role. It's playing off of a centre forward, not as a free number 10. I think he's much more as a kind of a 9.5, if you like. That's kind of his best role for me. Big Smoke says, some people say our style of play, being slow passes and not creating chaos, rewards teams who sit back in their defensive shape and thrive in low blocks. What do you think? I think ultimately Arsenal have been bereft of their clear and obvious attacking options this season. That's why Arsenal's system has changed. That's why our build-up has changed. That's why the way in which we approach games has changed. So I think that's more inclined to affect our style and system this season. Last season, we were very aggressive, very attacking. And look, we've scored plenty of goals in big games this season against Real Madrid, against PSV. We've scored in big moments. Just the other week against Ipswich, we were scoring plenty of goals. But I just feel as though that there is this sense that across the whole season, there's no reason why Arsenal should be playing in the way that they are now. But the reality is that Arsenal have got plenty of reasons to have been playing in the way that they are this season as well. That said, I do think that Arteta did slightly prioritise the idea of kind of shoring up us defensively more from last season, and that has obviously had a knock-on effect as well on how we play. Charles says, loan was supposed to push to show that your parent club what you have and / can do, but none of these loanees are doing or did so. I can remember what Saliba did on loan. They are not good enough, and we should sell or release them. Fabio Vieira is having a decent loan spell with Porto. He's definitely grown into that loan spell with them, and hopefully that's helped to increase his value going into the summer transfer window. But he's had a better season, I think, than maybe people were giving him credit for. Reece Nelson sadly got injured, but was having a bit of an impact as well at Fulham. Tavares also had a pretty good start to the season as well with Lazio. But Fabio Vieira's got 10 goals and 8 assists this season across all comps. I mean, that's pretty. 10 goals and 8 assists. That can't be right. It's not even coming up as 10 goals. That can't. 5 goals and 4 assists. Transfer Markt's letting us down. when you click onto the actual full details bit, it gives you the correct. But he's got 9 goal contributions this season in 36 games, which is not amazing. But he has grown into the season. He had a really good period of form in February and March. He scored 3 goals and got 1 assist in 4 matches. Good kind of spate of form there. But since that, hasn't necessarily been able to contribute as much. But I think that will have helped his value. I think Vieira's form this season will have helped us hopefully move him on in the summer for a decent price. Ronald says, what price would you pay for Eze? Probably like 60 million. So I'll be looking to pay about £60 million. I've been talking about Eze quite a bit this season as somebody I'd like to see sign for the club. It's good to see that his form of late is certainly helping to kind of help boost his profile, if you like, as well. PW says Eze and Torres would be good. I love this comment, and the reason why I love this comment, PW, and I'm not saying that you've necessarily fallen into a trap, but Eze and Torres both scored yesterday, of course, for Palace and for Barca, and that obviously means that their names are now in the minds of so many of us as we talk about them. I wouldn't sign Ferran Torres personally. I think that he's in the right place with Barcelona. I think that's the right place for him to play. And I think he's had his run, of course, in the Premier League when he was with Manchester City. Yeah, he's a good player, but I think there are obviously other players that I think Arsenal should be looking to sign in the forward line. But Eze, for sure, I would be looking to potentially look at signing him in the summer. I think he's an excellent player and would really add to a number of positions in the team, attacking midfield, the left kind of wide position as well he could potentially play at, the left 8 he could potentially play at as well. I really would be looking at that. Carl says, Gyökeres, not Sesko, is our best bet if we want immediate impact. Sesko has been poor this season, and particularly in Leipzig's match yesterday where Ekitike shone brightly. I did see Elliot's tweet, who is a big fan of Hugo Ekitike, who was kind of pointing out the rating between both. I think it was Elliot, at least, pointing out kind of the rating difference between Sesko and Ekitike. Yes, 8.7 Ekitike with a goal and assist, whereas Sesko finished on a 6.0. It should be pointed out that Frankfurt have a far better creation ranking than what Leipzig do. Sesko has been feeding off very little this season. Creatively, Leipzig have fallen off a cliff this season, which has obviously affected Sesko's ability to score goals. But as a result, he still scored plenty of goals this season, Sesko, and I think his kind of lack of maybe same level of appreciation this season is more to do with that than his own ability. Ferran Torres, by the way, has got 18 goals this season and 4 assists across 42 games. Still only 25 years of age. I think people think that Torres is older than he actually is, but still, I think he's in the right place that he needs to be at Barca. Eze or Nico Williams, they're very different players, Carl. Eze is more of an attacking midfielder, Nico Williams much more of a wide forward. So I don't think I could put them necessarily into the same category of saying one or the other. I'd be looking to sign both. Ronald says, with so many French clubs struggling like Lyon and Marseille, should Arsenal buy or have partnerships with one of them? I think those clubs are probably too big when it comes to looking at, like models of multi-club models. I think they're too large, You think about the clubs that are in competition with the other teams. It's very rare that you see them in the same European competition, for instance. It's rare that you have that. Girona, we had it last season, win the Champions League, but that was a kind of a one-off. Leipzig and Salzburg, of course, but it's very rare that you do see that. And I think those teams are way too big. And I think it's more likely that you look at as Chelsea did with a Strasbourg or somebody like that you're more inclined to link to. I think those sides are far too big to be part of a multi-club model with a team like Arsenal. They're more likely to have multi-club models themselves than be part of another Premier League side's multi-club model. But who knows? Could be wrong. You never say never. AFC Matt says, do you think Arsenal need to improve in the loan market? I feel that we loan young players in the academy out and they barely play. It's definitely an area that maybe we do need to be a bit shrewder with our youngsters. We have had some success in the past. You think about Balogun, of course, came back, did really well, and we got him a huge fee. William Saliba, of course, we did well loaning him out to France for a couple of seasons, 2.5 seasons, in fact, and got some really good benefits from those loan deals for Saliba. So, I think that there are things we've done well, things we've done less well, and things we definitely need to do a lot better. And I think it's a fair question to put to the club. Dylan says, we all love Odegaard, but would you swap him for any other player in the world, like Bellingham or Bruno? Bruno, no. Bellingham, obviously, but not Bruno Fernandes. I don't particularly rate them too differently. Bellingham is obviously be a no-brainer. Thierry says, honest discussion about Odegaard. It's clear he's not performing recently, but how the majority of the fan base is treating him like he's a scrub is crazy, as if he wasn't our player of the year for the last 2 seasons. Yeah, we have covered this. We talked about it a lot yesterday and the day before. People who don't rate Odegaard, I think mainly the people that have never rated Odegaard. I don't think this is kind of a this season issue. I think this season is just obviously where he's had a difficult campaign off the back of that injury has led to a bit of a pile on from supposed fans. So at the end of the day, Odegaard, I think, needs a summer of rest and will come back stronger next season. And I think he's more than well aware of that as well. Nico says, Tom, did you see the boxer in the Tottenham Stadium with the North London Forever is walkout music? I did indeed. I'm not the biggest kind of boxing fan, but you can't escape seeing kind of clips posted on your social media. That was a brilliant moment. Ramsey says, did you follow the Real Madrid referee saga before the Copa del Rey? We talked about that quite a lot in yesterday's show as well. Of course, Barcelona coming out with the win. Everybody see Jules Koundé do the Bukayo Saka celebration in the Copa del Rey final. If you haven't, check it out. Worth a watch. Spearmint says, do you think Saliba's not used to playing without Gabriel? I wonder if there's a reason for concerns with these blunders. I mean, that's on him. You know, that's not on Kivior just because Gabriel's not there. I'm not saying that's what you're saying either. But Saliba needs to work it out. Saliba needs to sort out these issues, these errors that have creeped into his game. He absolutely needs to sort them out, because if he doesn't, you know, Arsenal are going to suffer as a result, and we can't have that. Buster says, Nico Williams, same and similar stats to Martinelli, 30 million down the drain buying what we already have. I don't get why you keep saying that you want him. We should be aiming for better. I think obviously there's a lot to talk about when it comes to context around players. Nico Williams for me is a bigger talent than Gabriel Martinelli is. Not by like a huge margin, don't get me wrong. And when you get to this kind of level where you're competing for titles, the margins do tend to be much, much lower, you know. But in terms of his goal contributions, I mean, it is better. Like Martinelli is in the 54th percentile for wingers for goal contributions, non-penalty goal contributions. Nico Williams is in the 73rd percentile for those. When it comes to shot creating actions, Martinelli is in the 21st percentile, 2.96 shot creating actions per 90. Nico Williams is in the 87th, 5.04 shot creating actions per 90. Even when we think about progressive carries, you think about how much Martinelli drives with the ball. Martinelli's in the 84th percentile of those forwards. Nico Williams is in the 95th. And then when it comes to successfully taking on players, Martinelli is only in the 50th percentile. Nico Williams is in the 98th percentile for those. So when you suggest or say something like that about Nico Williams, or why do we keep saying he's not really better, Buster, the numbers are so different between the two of them. Martinelli's playing in an Arsenal side where he has plenty of service, plenty more dominance than Athletic Club do as well in their respective leagues. So I'm sorry, Buster, but the evidence is sincerely against what you're suggesting there, based upon just those kind of attacking, goal scoring and creativity statistics as well. But you know, that's just what it says. That's just what it is on the scores on the doors, if you like. Carl says, can Huzum play any other positions than centre back? Could he also play as a DM or as a right back? I don't think I've ever seen him play as a full back or as a DM, only on that centre back position. But he's very technically gifted, so I wouldn't necessarily put it past him. But I think that that's worth pointing out. DC's fallen into the trap of saying Williams is in the Spanish league. We cannot compare his numbers to Martinelli. It's always a very lazy argument, this, obviously. Yes, it's context, but I think when the gap is as different as that is, you could also point out that Martinelli's playing for a significantly more dominant team in his respective league than what Nico Williams is. So, and the Spanish league is certainly a very good one. Let's not pretend that, you know, Arsenal remain, of course, the only English team left in the Champions League, as are Barcelona, but English teams are getting knocked out left, right, and centre. It's not as the difference between the leagues is not as big as people may want to point out. You know, so I really don't. I can't get on board with that argument. It doesn't work that way, because otherwise, why would we ever sign a player from another league Why would you ever do that? Why would you ever sign any player from another league if indeed that's how people feel about it? It's always a lazy argument. It never really stacks up. Salahuddin says, what do you think could be the tactical plan for Lyon in today's game? And what time do you think, what time do I think it is? Or what the time is the game? Arsenal, of course, taking on Lyon in the Champions League semi-final, second leg, 5 o'clock today. That's UK time, I believe, 6 o'clock local time in Lyon at the Groupama Stadium. It's a big task for René Slegers. They've got to go pretty offensive. I mean, they've got to score. They've got to win, I think. Obviously, it'd be great to take it to extra time. If they did get to extra time, it's going to be a massive effort to be able to do that. I think if you offered extra time to Arsenal fans right now, they would absolutely take it. But it's going to be a big effort. They've got to be offensive. They've got to be clinical. That's the thing in the first leg. We had chances. We didn't score them. We need to be more clinical this time around. And if we do get a goal, we need to be secure, because obviously after we scored that goal through Mariano Caldente in the first leg, we conceded pretty soon after. So you're always most vulnerable after you've just scored, as the cliche goes. So that's the expectation. The scores last time they played Lyon, it was 2-1, Alex. It was 2-1 in the first leg to Lyon. I don't know what our history is like against Lyon personally. My knowledge isn't that in depth, but if that's what you're asking, I don't know. Owen says, if we won the Champions League and then stopped, here we go. Would you expect the mainstream media to give us our credit? You'd expect Arsenal's coverage to outshine Liverpool's league win, but I feel that there would be negative narratives. We will have to wait and see, Owen. Let's cross that bridge if indeed it comes around. We can hope and pray that it does. We've got a great chance. Let's wait and see if that happens. Marcus says, how many teams from the Premier League automatically qualify for the Champions League? 5 teams, same as in Spain as well. Lunatic says, are you worried that we're letting players run out of their contracts? No, we're pretty good right now for our team in terms of contracts expiring. Arsenal are currently in talks with Gabriel. There's talks underway with Bukayo Saka. There's talks, of course, also underway, expected to start with William Saliba very, very soon as well. So, no, I'm not very concerned at all about Arsenal's situation with their contracts. We're in a pretty good situation right now with those players. The most likely expiries, of course, Jorginho and Partey in the summer, Kieran Tierney as well. But we're already under contract talks, it's suggested, with Partey. Trossard, Zinchenko are in 2026, so they're the only ones with 1 year left on their deal. Those players could, of course, leave the club in the summer. They may be sold. We'll have to wait and see on those ones. And then, of course, 2027, Jesus, Saka, Gabriel, Saliba, Martinelli. Arsenal are very much across those and very, very calm. And then the rest of the squad are at least 3 years. So really, when you're looking at starting figures in the team, Partey, Saka, Gabriel, Saliba, Martinelli, you've got those players there. The rest of the team are all very, very comfortable. And the other players that we've just discussed, they're already in talks. And very, very calm on that front about their future as well. Speedman says Real Madrid has got an easy run. Apparently, I don't know who on earth. Arsenal finished third in the league phase, having beaten PSG already in the league phase. They had Inter Milan, of course, where they had to go to Sporting. Had to go to Atalanta, who at that point were unbeaten, I think, especially in Europe. Very good record at home. Arsenal have not had it easy at all in the Champions League whatsoever. PSV at the time, people were tipping PSV to knock Arsenal out. I was looking at how on earth we were even going to score in that first game as well. So, yeah, without a doubt, I do think that we are in a very, very strong position because we've had a very challenging run up to this point and now have, for many people, their favourites for the competition in PSG. Bus says, well answered on the Nico Williams question. That's why I asked. I like to get these answers with more depth. There you go. That's the type of response we like. You've got an opinion. You've seen the evidence that suggests why there's this big difference between the players and why, indeed, I'm so keen on Nico Williams as opposed to somebody like Martinelli. And you've gone, you know what, fair enough. That's some really strong evidence, and thought, you know what, well, it does change my mind perhaps about these things. Soup says, to be fair, there are negative narratives about Liverpool's title win as well. I've heard this season being called another asterisk title. Yeah, I think that's a lot from obviously Arsenal fans, but I agree with it. It's the luckiest Premier League title I've ever seen since since probably the COVID season. So it is without a doubt the luckiest Premier League title the team has picked up. The injuries that they haven't had, the key players they haven't lost, the key players their rivals have, it's just night and day, really. AFC Matt says Arsenal have been releasing a lot of Ethan and Miles PR. Do you think that we could be getting a joint announcement with both of them on their new contracts? I imagine we'll get an update on those two very soon as well. There's a lot of confidence around their futures, but I did see the video yesterday. Really nice interview with the pair of them. Dylan says, do you think Tottenham will bounce back next season, or more time for laughing at Tottenham? It depends on what they do in the Europa League. If they were to win the Europa League, it could give them a platform, of course, to sign players, being in the Champions League next season. Would they keep Ange? I don't know. I doubt it. His head's gone. His head is gone. But yeah, difficult one. Not sure. Byron says, with us negotiating with Partey and Jorginho leaving, we'll be getting another CDM to help. I prefer Marino at 8 and Rice at 8 as well. I think if Partey stays, I don't think you need to. I think if Partey and Jorginho both go, you may need to consider another midfield signing. Amberley says, can definitely see those two being a joint contract announcement. I look forward to it. Noah says, Alisson was injured. Trent was injured. I mean, the thing is that they've not lost the key positions like Arsenal and City have, where the depth is not in the same places. Where Arsenal and City have lost their players was like Saka. Imagine if Liverpool had lost Salah. Arsenal have lost Ødegaard. Imagine if Liverpool had lost McAllister, their most key midfielder. If they had lost the players that Arsenal and City have lost, Rodri, of course, the most important player in that team. They've lost Haaland for the end of this season, of course, as well. It's just night and day, the differences between Arsenal and Liverpool and City, like how important the specific players those teams have lost. And then you look at the refereeing decisions, of course, that Liverpool have benefited from compared to Arsenal. It's mad. Absolutely mad. Anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. It is greatly appreciated. I hope that you have enjoyed this morning's episode. Tomorrow is, of course, press conference day. There will be a show in the morning, but I will be at the Emirates Stadium to hear from both of Luis Enrique and Mikel Arteta. Both press conferences taking place at the Emirates tomorrow. There's also an open training session, of course, where we'll have you updated as to who is there. Hopefully we see Mikel Merino. Hopefully we see Ben White there as well. Tomorrow is the setup for Arsenal's biggest game in their Emirates Stadium history. Huge, massive. Can't wait. Buzzing, excited. I am anticipating something special. I hope that you are as well. And we'll be talking more about that game in tomorrow morning's show. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your Sunday. Enjoy yourself. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.